But the reason I keep making this distinction is because when you go into American public education, they do not have standards of certain content. They only have standards of skills.
Welcome to Classical Etc. You're in the studio with Memoria Press.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Classical Etc. I'm Jessica Aboud, and we are the core four today. Paul, Tanya, Martin. Hey, everybody. Hello. Last week we had a guest, so it's good to have everybody back. You've been traveling, Martin?
I have.
Everywhere.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I went on my national tour.
That got me, Martin.
Did you miss one of my dates?
Apparently I did.
Yeah. I'm going on a national tour next week with Kathy. But we're going to stay in the state of Texas, which feels like a national tour.
I was going to say.
Yeah, Texas. Yeah, I didn't get to Texas on this
This is my second time this summer.
Yeah, well, I've been there once, but this summer, but
but
not on this one.
We're all back. Does this mean, does your traveling put you behind in reading? Or does it give you more time, like on the plane?
Well, it depends. Like I don't mind flying because I get a block of time, undisturbed time to read. It's the only thing I can do. I get a window seat, see out there, it's very cool. And then I just sit there and just read, and I love it. So and even in airports I can read, although that's less pleasant because I'm not going anywhere. But outside of that, really on a trip, it's hard to get anything done. You got social things to do. You got to be at a conference. You got to speak, whatever it is.
Late nights, and then it's like
late nights.
Who can concentrate?
No.
So, yeah. And Tanya, how about you?
I'm reading The Father's Tale by Michael D. O'Brien. It's published by Ignatius, and Marianne and Marie from HLS Orlando recommended it so highly.
Is this like real thick like that?
Over 1,000 pages.
Oh, Tanya.
Yes, it's much bigger than Moby Dick, but it's a faster read.
Yes, is that
it's
one
a good narrative.
about Father Elijah? Is Father Elijah in that book? No. That's a different book.
Not yet.
Okay.
400 and some pages in. It's called The Father's Tale. It's about a man who his wife has died. It's in Canada. He's in Canada, and he owns this bookshop, and he's just been kind of like a hobbit, a stay-at-home introvert. And then one of his sons in college gets hooked up with this mystical kind of cult. And so he goes after him, and he studied Russian all of his life, and he's got this one room dedicated to Russian literature in his bookstore. And he ends up, so he leaves Toronto and he goes to Oxford, where his son was a student. And then that takes him to Finland, and then he ends up in Russia, and now he's on a train on the way to Siberia.
Oh.
So, it's this path, and all the people that he meets there, and there was this amazing Good Samaritan little story that I was reading this morning in it. It is so, the author is a devout Catholic, and it almost is starting to have a little bit of mysticism in his, he's just so distraught, and he spends a lot of time in prayer, and it's a really good book.
And this is Michael O'Brien, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not the Michael O'Brien book I was thinking of.
Yeah, well, there's a bunch. My wife has read several of his books, and she just swears by him. And she keeps wagging her finger at me and saying,
"This one
you
is
need to read."
This big.
They're all
that big. Yeah,
Oh, are they?
Yes, well,
it's
there's
so good.
A non-novel, a nonfiction book that's a small.
Yeah, but his fiction is always thick.
It is very much keeping my interest. Like, there hasn't been a downtime at all, because there's all these people that he keeps, connecting with. And so it's just like a bunch of stories on his journey in different communities, and his anguish,
over his son.
Yes, that he can't find his son. And so Marianne or Marie, actually, at the FPEA homeschool convention, on the convention floor, she ordered it to be sent to me. And so it was a gift. And so I thought, well, I guess I better read it. It is, but she and Marianne were both raving over it.
Yeah, I've had particularly like homeschool mothers wagging their finger at me, telling me I need to read his book Island of the World.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I would definitely read something else by him. I mean, we'll see. It could fall apart in the next 500 pages, right?
It could.
But right now,
I don't think it will.
I'm
he's
very much enjoying it.
typically a good
But
writer.
it's but here's the thing. I started it and now I'm almost 500 pages in and I'm going to Texas for a week. And I've got this
take a huge book.
Right. That is so big that I've got to take it because I can't just stop now. I've got to keep going. I got to finish this journey. So I'm going to be hauling it around the airports.
But you mentioned the Father Elijah
hotels.
books, which is a whole series he has. And that's
Oh, it's a
those are the ones-
series?
Okay.
Series, yeah. My wife's read several of them.
Okay. I
really,
might read
really
that.
loves them.
Yeah, I read one of those long time ago, and I don't know if the series was out at that point or not, but I do remember enjoying that book.
Yeah.
But he writes, I mean, his breadth of knowledge is impressive because like he's written books that are set in like Eastern Europe. He's got this whole thing
But
with Russia.
I don't think he went to college.
Really?
I looked at a bio of him, and I think
Probably why he's a really good
I
writer.
think he is self-educated. He's like Frederick Douglass.
Wow.
Like he's educated. The classical allusions in there, the biblical allusions. I mean, there's, it's just chock full of art and music. And I mean, if he really did, if I'm right about him, and he has definitely educated himself better than I was educated in college.
Wow.
It's nice to hear that something's filling the Moby Dick vacuum. now that you don't have to.
Yes. A much faster read than, all the whaling. Oh,
And you're
the
totally
whaling
done.
encyclopedia.
You're finished.
I finished it.
Good.
I did. I mean, really, without the last 30 pages of Moby Dick, you think, why am I reading this? But then it all just kind of comes.
Really?
Yes. It's amazing. But I missed the entire book group.
Did you?
I missed the
Oh,
entire, I could
no.
not get in there. I either was in a workshop or I had meetings with people.
That's disappointing. You did all that work to participate in the discussion and you weren't in the discussion.
Totally missed it. But I'm glad I read the book.
Paul, what are you reading?
Well, I was on a plane and I decided to start reading. Actually, I read better in airports than airplanes.
Really?
It's the movement. I started getting
yes,
motion sick the
yes.
past few years, and I do better sleeping on a plane than anything
See,
else.
I can't sleep on a
Me
plane.
neither.
I wish I could.
And but I started this book called Why Choose the Liberal Arts by Mark William Roche, and I had good hopes for it. I found it at a used bookstore on one of my travels, and I was disillusioned very quickly.
By him or by his?
Well, I was hoping that this was going to be like a strong defense of the medieval liberal arts, and it's not. It's a defense of the current liberal arts college.
Oh.
And I mean, it's within the past 20 years it was put out, and I was disappointed because my expectations did not meet the reality, and so I haven't got too far into it.
Are you using that pen to mark in your books?
Yes.
That would
Okay,
drive
Paul,
me
we
crazy.
need to get you some
I'm sorry,
bookmarks.
what?
He needs a
Wait,
pencil. He needs a
yeah,
pencil.
you need-
Why not? I want my notes to be forever lasting.
And it's gonna will ruin the binding of a good book if you do that.
Oh, if I would do this. Yes, I don't care about this book. Yeah.
Well,
Normally I have a bookmark and then I keep my pen separate, but in this case,
I just can't imagine
that's-
using a
that's-
pen or a highlighter.
I'm feeling
Really?
sympathetic toward the
Yes,
book right
I have
now.
to have a pencil.
Oh.
It's got to be a pencil.
Yeah.
You use a pen?
I'll use any writing instrument I have.
Here, this is a gift to you, a mechanical pencil that you
Wow,
can
thank
use
you.
to mark your books.
Can
This
I
is what
put
you
it
need.
in here? Or do
It'll ruin your binding, but
No,
you
no,
can
no,
do
you
this.
can't. Sorry, no.
I
Yeah, there you
could
go.
do
You can do
this.
that.
It comes with special instructions.
There you go. All right.
Right.
Okay, that makes me feel
and,
better.
and was I supposed to get a question on what I was reading? I just
Tell
got
us.
the reading habits.
Well, she
question.
asked you if you were,
Okay.
that
Yeah,
was the segue.
okay. Well, I didn't know it was the book question. All right.
Oh my gosh.
We always start with the book question.
I got back. I think I may have mentioned this on the previous post. I started to read Tom Jones by Henry Fielding.
yeah, what do you
which was
think?
one of the it's one of those books on the old great books lists, right? But you don't see it mentioned much anymore. I am totally enjoying this book.
I read
thought
it
it was
in college. It was on my college book
Was it?
list. Mhm.
Yeah, and big hardback, cloth bound, one of those intimidating looking books. I find it just delightful.
Oh, I'm going to put that on my list again.
And I get to like the 6th chapter, and they're very short chapters. And I get to the 6th chapter, and there are probably 5 or 6 classical allusions in that one chapter. I don't think I was noticing too much before, but these people knew mythology and history and all, and it just struck me that there were so many of these, particularly in that one chapter.
To me, one of the sort of travesties of our day is actually the sheer amount of knowledge that we have and the sheer amount of like storytelling that happens because we don't have anything common to go back to, right? Because that body of knowledge was limited before. You could have an author that it was clear what those illusions were.
Right.
And now, I'll go hang out with friends and they're referring to things that I've never heard of just because there's so much content out there now.
Well, we inhabit different cultures now. There used to be one sort of monoculture that we all had access to, that we all studied in school, that we all, and now I know what culture I'm from because I've studied it in Western culture, but I don't know what the culture is of my next door neighbor.
Yeah.
Right.
They're into something specific online or whatever it is, and I'll have no clue what it is. So we all live in these little compartments now that don't have any connection with each other. And I think that's a real problem in trying to have any kind of civilization is when you have that.
Or even that, that's the problem writ large. But even when you think about connecting to your neighbor, you don't know.
Right. And that's why, you're talking about liberal arts college and all that. I mean, I do think there is something to be said for that old ideal of a liberal arts college where you got a broad education and you study it. And everyone at one point anyway, in our history, we studied roughly the same things. And we were expected to have this sort of not extensive, not terribly deep even, but just a familiarity with certain things in our common culture that was handed down to us. And now everything is specialization. And so it's hard to communicate when you don't have the same cultural references. You can't use something as an example because the person's never heard of it. That's a big problem, I think.
And that's why one reason we give our students, the same curriculum.
That's right.
That we don't.
Yes.
So many schools let their teachers choose what the students are reading, and it changes teacher to teacher to teacher based on what they're interested in. And then the students, none of them really have, they don't have a community of knowledge that they can share with each other. They don't have a shared experience.
Whereas, I mean, you see this in even stories of education or just general stories from 100 years ago where somebody who came out of a school and he might be 50 years older than this young person he's talking to, but they share the same educational experience, right? And they can say, oh, you went to that school? How'd you like that course, right? And they're 50 years difference, but they knew that it was the same.
Right.
Right.
That's impressive.
Yeah, but it's just not the case anymore.
And that's what a canon was for, was to have these common reference points that we could all know so that we could share ideas and cite references that both of you would know and all that. And that's a problem now.
But we're going to fix it.
Yeah, we're going to fix it. That's right.
We are fixing it.
We are fixing it.
Day by day, student by student, one student at a time.
One student at a time.
And maybe today's podcast is going to help us kind of lead the way with maybe some helpful definitions and some frameworks for that. Because today's topic is straight to the heart of it, the liberal arts. That term gets used a lot, and we've even used it a couple of times in this episode in the last 10 minutes. But what do we really mean by it? That's what we're going to talk about today. And this topic came to us from a listener, Alicia, who emailed us at podcast@memoriapress.com. If you too have a question, please let us know. But I'm going to read Alicia's question so that we hear what some of the things that she's been wondering about around the liberal arts conversation. And then that'll help us not just help Alicia, but I think discuss the broader liberal arts topic. Because I know I certainly have misunderstandings and misconceptions about it too. So,
Well, I have for years.
I have
because I
yeah.
went to a liberal arts college,
So
so
did
I thought, yes,
So
I
she
have a
has no
liberal
clue
arts.
what
I do too. I know.
I thought I knew,
Been underserved, I think.
but Martin set me right. You know, with that, it's that chart.
I'm going to quote that statement.
Oh, please do.
Yeah.
You don't have to now. It's on national
Yeah, it's on
TV.
national TV.
It's live forever.
That's right. You know that chart that you
My chart?
love. Yes. And you don't like the newest iteration of it, but it keeps appearing in different iterations.
Yes. Yeah, we change it. We turn it
Right.
upside down. We sideways.
Yes. But it's a nice little reference.
Yes.
On the liberal arts.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, he just lays it all out. I don't know. I can't remember. It's I have to actually use the chart.
I've
But these
seen it
are
before.
were these in articles in the Classical Teacher?
Yes.
Yes.
Because
we
there
put
was
it in the
also an
magazine.
internal chart I did for you at some point, or I
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
I've still got that too.
I expanded Martin's or something,
Ooh.
clarified it.
Can I have a copy?
Tanya's got
Oh,
that somewhere. I
gosh,
don't.
I've got to find it. Yes,
Find it,
it's
send it
just
to me.
literally on a junk piece of paper that we found in
That's
the
how we
break
feel
room.
about you, Martin. Junk pieces of paper from the break room.
and he did it with a pencil.
Yeah.
Literally, I've carried it around from Poplar Level.
Yeah,
Oh,
you
wow.
have because I saw
Yes.
it recently.
This
Yes,
Oh,
I had
this-
found it when I moved, but I don't know
This
where.
piece of scrap paper scrawled
It really
on in the break room
was.
could change the course of civilization, and we can't find it.
I'll look for it.
That's what's holding you back from stardom,
I
Martin.
think so. I need this
It's us.
piece
It's
of
our fault.
paper, the scrap paper.
Well, maybe I know that we did put it in the magazine recently. Maybe the media team can link to that article because I think we did publish it.
We've
Something.
talked about it recently,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
on the podcast, I
We
think
have.
Martin brought in the old one.
Mhm. Not the secret scrap piece of paper. but my version.
No,
That's in the vault.
That's in the vault.
Okay, well, let's get to Alicia's question. She says, "Hello, I have a question that's been on my mind for some time now. Can you tell me in detail what is the difference between neoclassical education and traditional liberal arts classical education? How is implementation different, and is one better than the other? Did our founding fathers use one or the other, and is one more authentically classical than the other?" That's rapid fire, but they're all really good questions. And
and they're all connected.
they are. I wonder if the first place to start is where she started, defining neoclassical and traditional liberal arts classical education. How would you define each of those?
Yeah, this term neoclassical gets thrown around, and
Mhm.
I'm not entirely sure that.
I think it's the Dorothy Sayers thing.
Well, I do, but I'm just saying that this is one of those terms people throw around, and I'm not sure a lot of people who use it aren't using different definitions. But
I see.
but I do think that the most common sense in which I hear that term has to do with this Dorothy Sayers stages of learning idea.
Mhm.
That did help to launch the classical education movement, just historically speaking.
Launch the new,
What?
not it
The
didn't
modern-
the
the modern classical
in the
education
1990s. I'm talking about when classical schools,
right.
as we know them now, started making a comeback. And Cheryl talked about that. She was fine with that. That was because that's what's called a taxonomy of learning, right? And she talked about these stages that had to do with age of learning that you went through, and what the particular sort of educational psychological characteristics were of each of those ages of students, and what they sort of tended to respond to. So you had a grammar stage and a logic stage and a rhetoric stage, and I think Dorothy Sayers was correct about that. There are students are much more concerned about sheer facts at a lower age and very basic operational things, skills. And then in the second stage, the logic stage, they start thinking more logically. You can't teach logic in grammar school, right? You teach it you teach it in a class of older children, and then at the rhetoric stage, she kind of portrays it as a creative poetic stage. I don't know what that. I could see some connections with rhetoric, but not real close. And so that's fine. I don't have any problem with that. I think that's probably a correct taxonomy of learning. But that's not what classical education is. I've said this before. She's not even talking about that in that speech that she gave in the 1940s at Oxford. She never says in there that she never uses the word classical. Mm-hmm. She's just talking about how children learn. And in fact, if you would ask Dorothy Sayers what a classical education was, she would give a definition like ours.
She would have pointed back to liberal arts.
Right, because that's the education she got, was that old classical education.
Nice tie-in.
Thanks. She was actually explicitly saying, I'm going to use the liberal arts as an analogy for how a child learns, right? And so she was speaking to a group of people who understood what the medievals meant by the liberal arts. And that would have been the assumption in Oxford at the time.
Which would have been grammar, logic, rhetoric.
Yes, as disciplines,
not as a method of learning,
not as a stage of learning. Correct.
Yes.
Correct.
Right. And the other point is that the whole idea of a taxonomy of learning, of focusing on how a child learns, is not a classical focus at all. There was very little discussion of that in any classical texts or in any classical thinkers. Mm-hmm. That is a very modern thing. That is a post-psychology thing. We don't get modern psychology until we get to the late 19th century. And there's a veritable revolution there. So we didn't even talk in the way she talks in that talk until, probably 60, 70, 80 years before she's giving that talk. No one would have been interested in the questions that she's addressing before that time. And so in the old classical education, which Dorothy Sayers would have gotten, like I said, you got a very different emphasis. It's very much focused in terms of its purpose on passing on a culture, and it is focused on training the mind and the soul.
Is that how you're defining liberal arts?
Well, okay. Liberal, if we're getting to that question.
Can I just tie up neoclassical real quick I think neoclassical also embraces more like the Susan Wise Bauer's principle of having history that ties into your literature and you cycle
could add that into
right.
There's
but everything that neoclassical encompasses tends to be methodological and not as much content driven. Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So
and classical education was concerned a whole lot more with the what than the how in education. Yeah. You only get these how questions post psychology.
So sorry, I interrupted.
Yeah, no,
so go on to
that's
definition of liberal arts.
That is true. And so in traditional classical education, you've got to focus on a body of knowledge that has been passed down for hundreds of years. It's a tradition, and you're passing down that tradition. Right. And you're doing it in particular kinds of ways. There is an acknowledged, there are skills and there are subject, disciplines, we would say. The arts and the sciences. Mm-hmm. That's the old accounting of what you learned. There were a set of language skills, grammar, logic, and rhetoric, which was used in its original sense, not Dorothy Sayers' sense. And a set of mathematical skills, arithmetic, music, geometry, and astronomy were the old ways of studying, on the math side of things, the qualitative and the quantitative. Mm-hmm. And that's what education consisted of. Now we can break down
the education of the free person.
Yeah.
And that's where liberal comes from, right? So the arts, that is the skills, that's what that word means. The skills of the free person were grammar, logic, rhetoric, arithmetic, geometry, music,
because there were other arts. There were manual arts from manus, the Latin word for hand.
I learned that as servile arts, but same thing, right?
Yeah.
But they're the arts of that are so blacksmithing,
trade skills.
Trade skills, all those things,
So you're saying those people aren't free?
But the arts weren't designed for that purpose. They were designed for, it was the skills, the skills having to do with the physical manipulation of things that were involved in trade things. It's not that they're not noble. It's just
right. And what makes a man free really is his mind.
Yes.
Right. And so what you are trained to is if all you are trained, mentally speaking, is in a way to use your hands, then you aren't being given the tools to really be free and think in a free way, in the way that facility with language and mathematics starts to train you for.
Yeah, and so there were basically three kinds of arts: the manual arts, that were the fine arts, which are the things that you do, from the Latin word finis, which means end, as opposed to means. In other words, the fine arts are the things that you do that are ends in themselves. Why do you dance? You don't dance for any other reason other than you enjoy it. You like it for its own sake. Music, painting, those kinds of things you do just simply because you love to do them, right? They're ends in themselves. And then you have, as Paul said, the liberal arts, from liberare, to free, and they're the arts of a free person, the ones you need to know to have a free mind and a mind that can address important questions that you're trying to answer, eternal questions, and so those are the three arts. So liberal arts are a kind of art. Art meaning skill, in some sense, more like what we would say is skill, as opposed to a science. When we say arts and sciences, opposed to a science that is basically what an organized, systematic body of knowledge. So history and literature and philosophy and those things, those aren't natural sciences. Those are one of the kinds of sciences, but those are the human sciences, which we call the humanities.
And but there wasn't this.
I'm very confused. I mean, here we go again.
Should have brought our chart. So
or a whiteboard.
Right.
But what I would say is, with the distinction of art and sciences. Hey, give me a second, Tanya.
Okay.
With the like Martin's making this distinction, and that distinction historically has been made, but it was not made in the way subjects were taught in the classroom. Right. In the sense that it wasn't like, we're going to go try to teach you the art of grammar completely outside of any content. Right. Or we're not going to try to teach you logic outside of content. These things go hand in hand. Right. So the arts and the sciences go together. And so when we say we're teaching you arithmetic, yes, you are learning skills of how to think quantitatively, but you're also learning the content of what multiplication means, or what the number 5 means, or all of that sort of thing, what a fraction is. That's all content that you need to acquire in order to be able to master the skill of thinking quantitatively.
Yeah. So you have a lot of what people call subjects on one side, and you have skills, the arts, on the other. And in terms of what schools are concerned with, it's the liberal arts. Those are the skills that you're learning. That's the how aspect of classical education, as opposed to the what, all your subject matter areas or disciplines.
Okay, can you give example? Like, what would the subjects be that you would consider liberal arts?
Well, liberal arts aren't really subjects; they're skills. That's what I'm saying. So they would be the language skills, grammar, logic, and rhetoric, and the mathematical skills.
Then the humanities are
the human sciences. They are sciences. They're subject matter areas.
Which you're considering literature, history, philosophy, which I would consider an art, not a science. I have a Bachelor of Arts in English, not a Bachelor of Science.
Well, we've ended up back here.
Yeah, that's right.
That's
to
right.
the modern
that's the
idea
misuse
of liberal
the
arts.
word, yeah.
And this is where over the past 15 years we keep trying to help you.
I know, and it
change
but
that.
then you confuse me again.
Well,
I feel like I've
an
got
art
it.
is a skill. Now, you can see how reading is a skill. You can see how math is a
Absolutely,
skill. But how is
yes.
history a skill in that
It's
sense?
just I
That's
can't
something
get my
different.
mind to be medieval. It's just 100% in the 21st century.
So because
I just can't get back there.
and
I
we
think I
lament that.
need.
Yes.
Do what?
And we lament that.
Well, I feel like I just need like a children's version of this entire conversation.
So we got kind of real deep in the weeds.
Yes,
And I got diverted 3 times.
Sorry. So sorry. But I think the main thing to I think first get your head around is the divisions of the different kinds of arts.
Okay.
So you've got the liberal arts, the fine arts, and the manual or servile arts.
And math is a liberal art because it's
a skill.
A skill.
Yes, and it's a skill of a free person, right? And if you think about it, right, when you read historical accounts of people that were either enslaved or kept in a lower caste or class, oftentimes education was intentionally, like the ability to read was intentionally kept from them.
You're talking literally about enslavement.
There's
not just.
It's both. It's both.
It's not just ignorance.
It's not just ignorance, but I'm saying that in societies where slavery has been a thing or an intentional lower caste, there is an intentional desire to keep them from
being free.
But being freed by the mind, because as soon as you're freed by the mind through these liberal arts, you actually fight for real freedom.
Yeah, if you don't know the types of intellectual skills that the liberal arts and the sciences confer, then you're a slave to other people. You have to depend on other people for everything. You know, and that's not a good thing. That's what constitutes a free person. You don't have to depend on other people.
So how did we get to, this might be a huge question, how did we get to just the tangle of the definition that maybe Tanya and I live in? Because I kind of thought, I have a liberal arts degree too, and I thought maybe this is a catch-all for the humanities. A lot of people think that.
Surely the producers can put up the chart while we're having this discussion. But I mean, again, it's arts, and there's three kinds of arts. The liberal arts, the manual arts, the fine arts. There's the sciences, okay? There's the natural sciences, you know, biology, chemistry, all that stuff. There's the help me out here. There's the sciences. Okay, there's the human sciences, which is literature, history, and philosophy, and there's the theological sciences.
Right, but Martin, what I'm saying is today, I think people, my peers, would define it very differently. So I'm saying, how did the game of telephone happen?
Right. So I think in a university, when they were looking at how are we going to indicate what this person's been trained in, right? That's the question. And then at that point, they make a division between, okay, if the main thing this person's going to walk out with is content knowledge, which is what Martin is saying, is the sciences, they're giving you a Bachelor of Science. So when they're giving you a Bachelor of Science in chemistry, they're not saying that you've learned the traditional liberal arts and you've acquired a lot of content knowledge about chemistry. They're saying what you're really walking out with is a lot of knowledge about chemistry. But then then they say, okay, then you've got a Bachelor of Arts in this other thing. And what they're trying to say there is that you might know a lot about whatever that discipline is. So in Tanya's case, English, but really what you're probably walking out with is a strong facility in language. But because those sort of over time, it became anything that's language based became a Bachelor of Arts. Anything that's math or science based became a became a Bachelor of Science. Whereas the original indication, I think, was meant to be, and sometimes you still see it, where somebody might have a Bachelor of Arts in, I don't know, the thing that comes to mind is communications. You might have a Bachelor of Science in communications, and you know it's still communications. But what we're trying to emphasize is one, they have more of a content knowledge, and one, they probably have more of a skill knowledge, and then we end up where you all are.
Yeah, I just think it's a confusion of terms, and those terms have lost their meaning, the old meaning. I mean, because I remember University of California, Santa Barbara, right, where I went to school, and I remember there was a sign, Department of Arts and Sciences or something, right on the wall. I passed by it 1,000 times, and when they put that on there, my bet was they were using it in its original sense, the way we use it. But now it's not. It's just what an art is and what a science is. Now science just means the natural sciences,
right?
And art just means the fine arts.
That's right, exactly.
Right, and so those terms they've shifted their meaning, and that's why there's all this confusion, basically.
Right, and so when we say
so, it's not you all that are.
No, it's them.
Okay. And if they had Martin's chart, that would save the world.
If they had my chart,
yeah. Well, and what we keep trying to refer back to is the system of categorizing skills and content knowledge that originates in the ancient Greeks and Romans and really gets codified in the Middle Ages. And so that's what we're referring back to. You go to, I think, was it at the Duomo, Martin, in Florence, where there were statues of the liberal arts? We saw it somewhere in Rome this spring.
Yeah.
And this was a common thing that they would do in medieval art, is portray the 7 liberal arts. And because this was seen as the way to form people in, like, using the gift that God gave us of intellect. And so it was an esteemed thing, but it was a codified thing. And I believe actually some of the shift happens with these Bachelor of Arts and Bachelor of Science in the modern world happens when children are no longer ready to go to university, already having a mastery, or at least a significant grasp of the liberal arts. That's what we're trying to do at Highlands, is give them a mastery of liberal arts. And the majority of our students go off into STEM fields.
Half of them
right?
do, yes.
But that's because they already have a strong basis in the liberal arts, and then they can use that and going to learn a whole bunch of content knowledge or an application of these STEM fields, and so in that sense, everybody in the Middle Ages, people going to university, they would have already been walking in with what we were calling sort of a Bachelor of Arts. They would have come in with a mastery of liberal arts. So that way what university was prepping to be a doctor or a lawyer or something where you need specific content knowledge.
There's another issue here, okay, which is how this term liberal arts is used now in the discussion of the liberal arts. Okay, if you go out, and I think Fried Zakaria, the CNN guy, he wrote a book on the liberal arts, and there's a number of books you can go out there. When you buy that book, you're not going to get the definition we were just talking about.
Right.
Okay, because what liberal arts, what they're referring to is the humanities.
Right.
That's
which
what
is
I
a
mean.
science.
That's what I said. It's a catch-all for the humanities.
It's a catch-all for every. Yeah. So it's that confuses the picture even more.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
What do you mean by content? Because I feel like every subject teaches content. I mean, I can do algebra.
It's not what it consists of. It's what its end is. What its point is. Is the end of that study? Is it a practical?
So literature is not.
Right.
Unless I want to teach.
That's not an art at all. It's a science.
Oh my gosh.
We just talked about it.
So
I know that, but I just.
because by content knowledge, right? So the way we teach literature, we are passing on science, so a knowledge of the text, but we are doing it in a way that is practicing the skills of the trivium, of grammar, logic, and rhetoric,
because those are used with everything.
Yeah. And so, in sort of a classroom that is firing on all cylinders, you're really doing both all the time.
Right.
But the reason I keep making this distinction is because when you go into American public education, they do not have standards of certain content of what they have to master.
Right.
They only have standards of skills. And those skills are largely divorced from any sort of content knowledge that you expect to teach them alongside that.
Even in science.
Do you consider a pre-algebra problem to be a skill or content?
Being able to work it is the skill. No, but being able to actually understand the question and know what is being asked, that's content knowledge.
So they're really both.
It all goes back hand in hand.
You can't have
skill
matter without form,
right,
in any area. I mean, just philosophically, even that there's nothing that's purely formal, and there's nothing that's purely material. There's always, to be anything at all, it has to be both things at once. So there's two aspects of it.
Lord,
Well,
I want to leave.
So, let me just say,
I think we should let her.
Let me, before you leave, let's talk about the trivium and the quadrivium, because I think this is important.
That is the liberal arts, right?
Yeah.
Haven't we been talking about
seven of them make up the liberal arts. Let's talk about the parts. Okay. So you've got the trivium, which is grammar, logic, and rhetoric. As in grammar is, let's just define this. Grammar is the skill of communicating a concept.
It's not Latin.
Well, it's taught through Latin. That's the content that you teach with it. So in the medievals, when they would talk about learning grammar, like you're learning your Latin grammar, but what you're doing there is you're teaching them the skill of being able to communicate a concept well in whatever language that's going. They're going to end up using that, right? Your logic is taking those concepts and forming them into arguments, right? So it's the skill of forming concepts into arguments, and rhetoric is taking those arguments and putting them in some sort of persuasive form.
Mm-hmm.
And then what we have in the quadrivium, this is where I wanted to get to, is you've got arithmetic and geometry. Arithmetic is discrete quantity. Sorry. Now I need to defend these. You know the difference.
Even I think he's getting into the weeds.
You know the difference between arithmetic and geometry, hopefully. But geometry deals with spaces, if you will. Arithmetic deals with numbers.
Fact. I feel like
okay, so
I feel like geometry is very abstract.
Both of them are actually quite abstract, but anyway. But then, what music and astronomy were meant to be in the liberal arts is the application of. So music is the application of arithmetic, because you've got these jumps between the notes, right, or the length of the time you hold those notes. Whereas astronomy for the ancient mind was applying
geometry,
circles and spaces to the heavens and trying to figure out how the natural world worked based on this geometrical point of view, if you will. And so there is application built in the liberal arts. There's an application of that skill to the natural world. And you see that particularly in the quadrivium. But like if you go to the trivium, you go back to literature. How are we doing literature as a science or as an art? What we're doing is we're using literature as a way to apply what we're learning in grammar, logic, and rhetoric to a discipline.
Mm-hmm.
Can we call this episode Martin and Paul Explain the Liberal Arts to Tanya?
For the 100th time.
Yes, and which I think our viewers will say, this has been the most convoluted, confusing conversation. I mean, there's really nothing that makes any sense about this.
Can I recommend a book?
Please do. One of my questions is going to be resources.
I will read it.
Okay. You publish it. You carry it at your publishing company. Yes, you do. Sister Miriam Joseph's.
Oh no, that's too hard for me. I tried.
No, read the first. Was it 19 pages?
I did.
Well, in terms of yes, the first 11 pages of that book. Just read the first 11 pages. I assign my students in one of my Memorial College courses, I assign them to outline those 11 pages because it's the best 11 pages
I need to outline
ever been written.
So, maybe I should outline it.
So I've been trying to convince Tanya that we need a little formation day at Memorial Press. Where
you don't have to convince me.
Why do we need to work everybody into it? It's just her.
No,
I think it'd be beneficial for everybody. But if we just read those 11 pages and we discussed it.
I think that'd be a great idea.
I think we need to discuss it.
Them
I gave you a copy of them because I wanted you to read them, and then I thought we should.
I need to read them, and I'm going to outline them like Martin said, and that will help me maybe.
Yeah, it will. And maybe we can link to the book.
It's just, it is because it's the whole definitions are totally different from anything. When you go to a liberal arts college, you're really going to a humanities college.
Well, and you're lucky to have that anymore.
Well, but I did. I had a very good humanities curriculum.
Yeah.
And so for me to go back and think that the whole thing was different in the Middle Ages, I mean, why did we even mess with it? Why did we mess with it? Why is it totally
I just think people forget what education used to be. This is the problem. We're trying to resurrect an older definition. So you still have the new definitions out there, which are confusing because they're not the same as the old definitions. And you're right. The way liberal arts is used now, it means the humanities. Right. That's not the old definition that we're talking about.
And this has always been my critique about my alma mater and your son's alma mater is those interdisciplinary courses they had.
Yes.
And these were one class a year, but if you went and read why the university had these, and this was a liberal arts college, and the reason they had these interdisciplinary courses, which for our listeners was once a year, you had to take a course which was outside of whatever your typical course load was or your major, and it was called an interdisciplinary course. But the reason they did that was because they realized their graduates were coming out of, they were graduating without an ability to think or speak about what they knew. And which is, what is that? That's the logic and the rhetoric portion of the liberal arts. And so instead of saying we should be practicing that in all of our courses as a liberal arts college, they said, well, we're going to put these, you're going to practice that in one course a year. And I was like, what in the world? Why would you do that? Because then I would go into a chemistry course and it literally was just information dump.
Right.
And when I asked, why do those two elements react with one another? It wasn't an explanation about what those elements are, but it was just follow the chart, man. Like follow the chart and you'll see whether they react or not. And I was like, that doesn't tell me anything about them. It's not helping me understand why I can't develop a chemical skill because all I'm doing is just following the chart. And that was my big critique going through a liberal arts college, having had a liberal arts background, like a medieval liberal arts background.
They're teaching a science as if it's a strict art.
No, the vice versa. They were teaching a science.
You said it was an information dump. It's
it's
science,
pure science.
As opposed to giving you a sort of an architectonic understanding of what that thing really is, what that element really is, or whatever. That's what I took you as saying.
Yeah, right. But what I'm saying is there was
a very extrinsic look at chemistry as opposed to an intrinsic look.
Yeah, I mean they weren't teaching the science well. Because the only thing they were concerned about in the science was had I like, for lack of a better term, like memorized periodic table, right? So like, did I know where those elements fit in the periodic table to be able to put them in the chart to be able to figure out what happened to them, instead of me understanding what those elements really were and what their properties were and why they, that's so in my mind, they were only teaching content without teaching me how to use that content. So that's what I'm saying. They weren't teaching any art alongside that science in a liberal arts college.
And one of Nick's classes was social networking, which he hated. But he actually, another one that he took one of those years, it was the only good one, was the Iliad and Odyssey.
I did one on Thucydides and the Peloponnesian War.
Right.
Yeah. I had to get up and teach the class every day because nobody else could read the text.
How does that match their definition of what an interdisciplinary course is?
Well, they had it where freshman focus. That was great. I didn't have to take that one. And I have no idea what that was about.
Oh, but Nick did. He hated it.
Yeah, that was probably the social networking one.
No, that was something about them communicating with each other in their group. It was awful.
But then the sophomore year was supposed to be American experience, so it didn't matter what the topic was. The teacher could choose any topic, but it somehow had to associate with the American experience. So like one of them was like jazz in the 1920s in Louisiana. Like that would have been the topic. But then the junior year was transcultural experience, so it could have been anything. So Nick and I out here were choosing ancient Greek stuff because that's what we know. And then the senior one was supposed to be all hot.
But a lot of those kind of courses, if they're reading Homer or Virgil or something, there was a whole movement at one time to have, like we had something called the something core courses, and those were classes everybody had to take.
Yes.
Right. To make sure that you, I mean, I think that it was a noble idea, right? But it got too much just surfacey and really didn't get down into. I don't ever remember actually reading the texts of Homer or Virgil. I remember reading about them, but it wasn't really, really studying those things. But that was a big movement one time. Then they abandoned all that back in the 80s.
I wonder if my school has abandoned it.
Oh, I'm sure most of them have.
Well, and to be fair to my school, like the course on Thucydides and the Peloponnesian War, I mean, that teacher, he wanted us to read Thucydides, come ready to discuss it. But it was clear within the first couple of classes that even though students were trying to read the text, they couldn't understand the text.
Right. Well, was the same thing happened with Homer. Is he's the only one in his class who had ever had any experience with Homer at all. And
or probably Greek mythology or any sort of Greek history.
Right. So I think it was the same thing. Yeah. For him, it was like he just sailed right on through, loved it, but nobody else in his class.
But what the teacher wanted to do was actually talk about the deeper like messages that Thucydides had, and he just couldn't because the students couldn't get past step one of understanding the text.
Right. Which that's scary.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you can't, like, it's very hard for a liberal arts college, like a real liberal arts college, to teach the liberal arts when you have students coming in that have no experience in the content knowledge that you're going to deal with.
Mm-hmm. Grammar, logic, rhetoric, they haven't been taught those skills.
That too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Wow. Alicia's question got answered for the most part.
Alicia's question got mangled to death.
If our founding fathers used one or the other, they would have used the before neoclassical, the traditional medieval classical education for sure.
The way we define neoclassical only happens in the 20th century, so obviously
that's right.
They would have had a traditional medieval classical education.
And they were all we just had an article on this, the classical education of the founding fathers.
Mm-hmm. There's a whole classical teacher edition.
These people were classically educated in the purest sense. Mm-hmm. They knew Latin and Greek. Not all of them, like George Washington, who only had an 8th grade education, didn't have that. But Hamilton and Jefferson and all those guys, they had a very classical education, and many of them went to Harvard. I mean, you had to know how to write and speak Latin at Harvard to get in the 17th century. Mm-hmm. So, it's a very classical institution at that time.
Well, and the question about was one more authentically classical than the other, and I think we should like go back to what do we mean by the term classical, and in that what the original sense of that word is something that goes back to the classical civilizations, which is Greece and Rome.
Yep.
And the medieval understanding of education comes directly out of that and explicitly out of that. Whereas you have educators in the 20th century that are explicitly trying to do something different. Mm-hmm. And so neoclassical, not explicitly, there are people that use the neoclassical tools, like we use those tools, but if you're not explicitly taking the whole of the tradition, I would say, then you're not you're not as classical as somebody who's trying to embrace the whole.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
And interestingly, the listing of the 7 liberal arts only gets really articulated explicitly in the early Middle Ages. That's not a term you're going to see if you go back and actually read the old classical writers, but it was there. It was just sort of implicit, and that's brought out in medieval education.
Interesting. Okay. Well, I'm glad that you shared the resource. We can link to that. I'm going to be reading those 11 pages.
Hopefully clarify something.
Whether it's a work talk or just personally.
We do not sell Sister Miriam Joseph's book anymore.
Oh, we don't?
No, because nobody ever bought it. People wouldn't buy it because it was so hard.
Well, now people are going to be calling you and wanting it, and you won't have it, and you'll realize what a mistake
That's
it was.
exactly
we will figure that out.
Well, do you need more than 11 pages of it, though?
No.
It's
nice, but...
It's nice, and those, when you're talking about what the liberal arts are, that's her introduction to it. Then she digs into the grammar, logic, and rhetoric deeply.
It would be good for me, but... deeply is the problem.
Mm-hmm. No, read the first 11 pages. You can do it tonight, and then you can come back.
I've got to find it.
Then you can come back tomorrow, and you'll thank me.
Oh, no, I'm going to thank Paul because he's the one who wants to do it as a whole group from Memoria Press.
I will admit that I found those 11 pages because Martin mentioned them.
Oh, he didn't tell me
credit
that.
The source.
He did not tell me that at the beginning.
I probably did. I don't know.
Either way, thanks a lot for clearing things up, guys.
It's clear. It's clear. Yeah, that's it. But at least it was something,
Oh, this has been great. So next week, you all do something equally convoluted, okay, while I'm in Texas.
Okay, we will. We will. Well, thanks for the discussion. I don't know if thanks are in order, but my head's spinning. But it's good. It's good. It's good to expand our minds for those of us who I did. And Alicia, I hope that you felt like we did your question some sort of justice. But truly, Alicia, if you had deeper questions, please write back to us.
And we'll give you another really convoluted answer.
Because we do want to help. Thanks everybody who stuck with us. And thank you guys too for being on the ride.
For making it to the end.
Oh, that was a good one. Thank you for joining us, and we'll be back next time. Thanks for joining us today on Classical Etc. by Memoria Press. If you like what you heard, please like, subscribe, or share this episode or comment. We love to hear your questions and your comments. If you want to learn more about Memoria Press, please go to memoriapress.com. This has been Classical Etc. We're so glad you joined us, and we'll see you next time.